Good evening. We have everybody back. What an exciting evening. What a great way to start and put us in a fantastic frame of mind to discuss our preliminary budget presentation. So this evening, I'm going to overview some of the general notes in the budget about our educational programs, and then I'll be passing things over to Mr. LaFranco, our business administrator, to walk us all through the numbers of the proposed budget. So welcome everyone, and one of the suggestions that we had from the board, if you notice on the agenda for this evening, you see that we have a discussion about district goals. So we thought that it would be beneficial to include the goals in the presentation of the budget. So we're hitting two topics at one time. And the way that we're focusing on our goals is discuss our overarching goals, identify some of the initiatives that we have done this year in furtherance of the goals, and then items that we have planned in the budget for the continuation of these goals. So our primary focus is always academics and increasing the academic rigor for our students, and also making a deliberate effort to publicly report student achievement progress and the ways that we are designing to address areas for improvement. This year, we experienced a carefully thought out administrative restructure. And coming into the district, it was evident that the majority of our administrators were stationed exclusively at the high school, and that our elementary buildings did not have the instructional support of the K-12 supervisors. We did some professional development. We worked together with our administrative team, and we had our supervisors of instruction assigned to sister schools. I was just speaking with some of them today, and they were talking about what a tremendous year of learning that it was for the supervisors to spend more time in the elementary schools and really gain that stronger support of our K-12 curricular sequence. One of the things that we also realized prior to this year is that we were hiring incredibly late in the season. A lot of appointments in late July, in August, and that is something that runs against our theme that we're working on to correct, which is to recruit the best and retain the best. Recruitment in the process needs to become early in the year. So one of the things the HR department has done this year, which has been strong, is really capitalizing on our contract, which encourages individuals, if they know that they are going to retire, to let us know early in the year. So we are in the process of already second and third round interviews at this point in the year, in March, for positions that will open in September. We're becoming more aggressive with our timelines in commending the Department of HR and the administrative team. They've been out to Kane University, the College of New Jersey. So a lot of our planning budget has been around job fairs. You may see the signs around town for the town job fair that we're having here at the high school in the coming weeks. So a real focus on improving the academic rigor is getting the best teachers and keeping them here in the Morris School District. In the upcoming school budget, you will see the ad for a director of elementary education and a 612 math supervisor. We have had leadership in the math department that has been cyclical, that has been K-12, and we have not been able to strengthen the sequence of the math offerings in the way that we would like. So the two ways that we're going to focus on that is having one administrator focus exclusively on the director role in elementary ed, and looking for someone, and we've already begun the hiring process, the interviewing process, an exceptionally strong-minded math professional for that 612 sequence. So first and foremost, when we want to increase rigor, we have to focus on personnel. So that's why you'll see the first lines are talking about what can we do to have a student-centered administration. an administration that is in the classrooms, working directly with teachers, spread out through the district, understanding the rhythm of each of our buildings and how the needs of our students may vary and be unique from school to school. In the next area, this year, we have sent a number of teachers from the middle school and the high school to middle schools and high schools around the state to study our scheduling, our master schedule. Where you will see this in the budget next year is a targeted instruction just to try and increase instructional time. We do have some challenges in our instructional time and in our collective bargaining unit. We are so fortunate to have exceptional teachers who teach a lot of minutes. If our teachers were to be compared to other districts, we would see that our teachers teach more instructional minutes at the middle and high school than many counterparts throughout the state. So when you're making an adjustment to go to a different schedule that requires maybe rotations or changing in the time of the day, it is difficult to achieve a different schedule and still have the same amount of instructional time. So what we're focusing on the year is this targeted increase of instructional time. If we cannot work out, as the scheduling committees are looking to do so, in offering math every single day over the every other day, which is the process we have now, we will have math labs in place that will target giving more instructional minutes on the days that math is not offered. We have been successful this year in increasing the AP participation, and we've done that through a series of means earlier in the year, blasting out conversations, and also providing in the budget for economic assistance for students who are enrolled in multiple AP exams or may qualify for financial assistance. So we knew it was important to get more students to take the test. We made the provisions in the budget and our own ingenuity to do that. So at the June board meeting, the director of guidance will be here, and we won't have all the AP scores back, but we're going to start something new called the Class of 2024 Outcomes. There will be some anecdotal information where different students will come up and talk about their experience in the high school in different programs, and we'll overview generally college acceptances and really help the board and the public understand what a Class of 2024 Morristown High School graduate looks like. We're super excited that next year, every freshman in the high school will be part of what's called the Pre-AP English 1 course. So the focus of Pre-AP programming are rigorous academic courses that prepare all students to be ready to take an AP exam. It doesn't mean that they have to take AP literature and language, but it allows them to develop critical thinking skills, enhance their writing skills, and be situated in such a way that they can tackle those AP courses should they choose. So next year, every freshman at Morristown High School, instead of taking English 1, will be taking pre-AP English 1. It doesn't confer AP credits, but the sense is that it will teach those skills that are essential for success in AP English. We began a pilot this year that the board supported in AP African American History. We were one of only a handful of high schools in the nation that piloted that course, and next year it will be a course offered in multiple sections. We're thrilled to have that opportunity here at the high school. We've been discussing all year the expansion of G&T programming that included additional, in terms of what does that look like in the budget. More stipends, for example, Mr. Lewis Leahy, who was here presenting to the board earlier in the year. Yeah, it also means entries, competition, contest entries, dedicating money for curricular resources, and we've been communicating much of that out through parent newsletters. Next year, we want to make more focus on gifted and talented resources and instructions in the day-to-day curriculum that our students receive. So developing where we have curriculum in Rubicon Atlas, we often note things like developing an understanding of empathy or social and emotional learning skills. We need to also build out our curriculum to have entries in there that talk about how to meet the need of the highly gifted and talented learners and make sure that those are included in the resources as well. This year, we increased testing opportunities by mandating, it was a positive mandate, mandating that all of our sophomores take the PSAT during the school day. That gives them a full year to prepare for the PSAT before it counts for the National Merit Scholar. The other thing we did, which was a lot of legwork in the summer, is we took advantage of a relatively short timeline for the NJGPA, and we tested students in the summer when they were able to be tested earlier so that they had yet another opportunity to master that exam before high school graduation. Great credit to our bilingual education department, which completely revamped the access testing process, making sure that testing environments were conducive to success. Taking moments in each school, looking at the testing environments, ordering new materials and supplies if they were needed so that the students could test where they would be ready to listen, actively engage, and tremendous support and training this year. We can't wait to see those access results because we know that all the hard work that was done to prepare for testing will make a difference. Next year, I'd like to see us offer more specific test preparation programs throughout the district. We started some partnerships with our community sites, but just again, introducing our students to the fact that standardized tests are coming back. They're going to be very much part of the college admission process. We can see the way that we're moving from test optional back to the importance of the SAT and ACT exams. So we need to refocus our energy on making sure that our students understand and are prepared for those tests. Very thrilled that we were able to put in last year in this way, pathways for math acceleration for our summer academy. How we're expanding that into next year is establishing benchmarks for completing Algebra 1 by 8th grade. So for some of us, and I know many of you are younger than me, so it will be different for you, but when I was in high school, you started Algebra 1, and that was considered on grade level. That's not the way that the system works today. On grade level is really getting through that Algebra 1 by the end of 8th grade. And that's simply, again, tied to standardized tests and success. If you complete Algebra 1 by 8th grade, you follow a sequence of taking geometry as a freshman, Algebra 2 as a junior, a sophomore, and then pre-calculus as a junior. Mastery of pre-calculus is essential for success on the SAT and the ACT. By creating opportunities for students who might not be ready to master the concepts of algebra and that abstract thinking in middle school, by giving them summer school opportunities that are credit-bearing, offering a boot camp to prepare for Algebra 1, we are making sure that our students are situated well for success in the future. So last year, even with the first introduction of this program, we had about 52% of our students beginning Algebra 1 in 9th grade. So starting from an area where they really had to push even further. I'm glad to say that this year, that number is 46%. So we've had an increase with just the introduction of these pathways of 4.8% for our students who are now, 54% of our 8th graders have completed Algebra 1. I'd like to see us get that number over the next couple of years closer to 75 or 80%. So we moved last year from 49.2 to this year 54%. And our goal as a district should be to have at least 75% of our 8th graders complete Algebra 1. That requires an intense amount of professional development for teachers. It requires us providing opportunities and strong mathematical resources for our teachers and for our students. And you will see in the budget bolstering for 6th through 8th grade mathematics, and the teachers are selecting the materials that they will have to push as many students to Algebra 1 by 8th grade as we can. We've had an increase in the K-12 STEM Academy, expansion of CTE programs, and we'd like to look at now introducing a STEM Summer Academy so that those students who go into the STEM program at the high school can have a couple of days of immersion in what the expectations of the academy are and how they can be successful in the academy moving forward. We have amazing dual enrollment programs. The board knows it feels like every month you're signing another memorandum of agreement for another dual enrollment program or a college credit program, such as Morristown College Promise. Much of our partnerships have been remote, or they have been with the County College of Morris. Next year, we'd like to expand to more four-year institutions, such as a dual enrollment program with NJIT for robotics and engineering. We formalized the iReady testing schedule. We identified family nights to integrate the importance of the messaging of iReady testing. Despite those efforts, we did see some score regressions from the fall testing to the winter testing in FMS, meaning that students' second administration of the iReady exam, where we'd like to see the students improve, actually fell back in all areas, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade math and language arts. Between 13, and 20% of students in each of those groups regressed. So we have to develop a plan for those score regressions and integrate how we can strengthen the instruction so that we don't see that loss of academic or lack of academic gains. We started a selection program for a Science of Reading based language arts literacy program this year, and we will be implementing that next year. So just as a refresher, Science of Reading is phonics-based reading instruction that deals with the way the brain decodes, forms words, and develops reading fluency. There's a lot of information out there, especially the backlash to the Columbia University program. You may have heard some of the podcasts, sold a story. We just want to be clear that here in the district, we have been using phonics-based reading instruction, and our integrated language arts program for our youngest learners will include that traditional brain-based research method of instruction. This year, the bilingual teachers have made great strides in including the WIDA standards, which are the standards for bilingual learners and mastery of language acquisition in all of our programs. Thrilled at the number of people who have come to our outreach programs, and parents have spoken tremendously with pride about the services that we're offering through bilingual education. And next year we have to but it's time to renew our 3-year multilingual plan for ESL and multilingual, and we'll see that reflected in the work we're doing next year. Oops, wrong way.
And before you go to the next slide,
I'll pause and see if there's questions from the board.
well, I just wanted to mention something because I don't know if you saw it. If you go back to your slide, what you were looking at,
There you go.
There it is.
towards the middle where it says STEM Summer Academy.
Oh,
You
I
didn't
didn't
mention
mention.
the next thing, but I think everyone wants to hear that, so I just wanted to.
Thank you for reminding me. So careful consideration, because the focus of our programs is serving the students of our community in Morristown and Morris Township, Morris Plains. But the board had considered a number of years ago the idea of looking at our STEM Academy, which is so attractive to our students, as a possibility of a tuition-based program where we would accept students from communities outside of our sending area to generate revenue for the program, which would be reinvested to hire new teachers, better equipment. I wrote that it wouldn't happen next year as a planned activity, but that it might be a conversation that we want to revisit as a board and a community with a long-term plan to see how viable we could make that. And again, one of the things I learned in conversations about that was as long as the priority is on serving our students first and making sure that our communities have all the access to the STEM academy that is desired, it would only be after that that we would be able to look at the possibility for tuition. So thank you for that. Our next goal is related to students' social and emotional curricular needs. So we've taken some heat for it. It was a big shift to revise our student attendance policy. We had become quite lax. And our policy needed to be revised. Ms. Engelfried worked incredibly closely with all of the building principals in the hot hours of the summer, countless meetings, and each day also takes time to carefully look at that policy and revise it. It was a big change for us, but the connection between attendance and achievement cannot be disputed. And the amount of students who were chronically absent, of course, were among our lower achieving students. This effort has been tremendous. And one of the things that we've learned as we continue this dialogue is we do need to provide for counseling for chronically absent students. We have to have individuals here in the district that can do home visits, find out from the families why they might have school refusal, what we can do to support them. And the other thing that you will see in the budget this year is sometimes just asking questions provides important information about why students aren't coming. Expanding our bus routes, making sure that the students on the other side of Speedwell Avenue and down here where the board office is have reliable transportation to the high school is essential. And those increased expenses are absolutely worth the investment to make sure our students are here on time and ready to learn. One of the things that we learned through virtual coffees and through discussions with parents and home and school is anxiety over the transition related to sixth grade. Moving from those small neighborhood schools to this enormous middle school. We think it looks beautiful when we come up on the hill, the sprawling campus, but it can be a lot for a 12-year-old. Some of the ways that we've seen this come out in our data analysis is those are some areas of concentration for school refusal and school anxiety among our sixth graders. Also, that's a time to develop identity, know who you are, establish who your friends are, and there's developing young in adolescence, so that also means maybe not always making the best choices. And when we look at our referrals for behavior or maybe unkind words, we're seeing some of that accompanying this difficult transition. Over the course of the next school year, we'd like to enact a sixth grade transition program that provides more social and emotional learning supports and makes the transition into sixth grade a less daunting one for our students and families. This year, all of our high school faculty were trained with mental health first aid training and beyond bias training. Next year, we're asking the district to support in the budget membership in the King University Diversity Council that connects us with high schools throughout the state who are looking to increase their awareness of diversity, equity, and inclusion. But the other thing that it does, it affords us to have reduced tuition for professional development and graduate level courses for all of our faculty and staff in the areas of equity and inclusion. This year, we've established the Positive Pathways program in place of effective school solutions to consistently provide effective counseling services for our students. Now we want to move through with consistently tracking and making sure that all of the students who require counseling services have those services available to them. So this is a work in progress. We are well equipped with counselors at every level. Our student to staff ratio is highly desirable, but as the ARP funds are expended, we have spent a lot of that money on additional counseling services. So we have to thoughtfully think about how the reduction of these different counseling services may affect our students. We did this by looking at how many students were served in each of the programs and how we could more effectively use that counseling money for different programs to meet the needs of our students. We also investigated a number of grants and free counseling services that are available. So for example, by partnering with the Neighborhood House, we saw some great connections where through their grants and after school programming, the cost of busing students to the Neighborhood House from the middle school is more effective than running an after school program there if it's already in place, for example, at the Neighborhood House. So those partnerships were helpful. We've lived in COVID, we've developed lesson plans in COVID, we've given away Chromebooks in COVID, and now we're saying, wait a minute, what's happening to everybody's brain from spending so much time in front of these screens? For the goal of social and emotional wellness, we are looking to reduce the amount of screen time. This will come in many forms in the upcoming school year, one of which we're beginning with is the wait until 8th, which is a pledge that parents take to wait until 8th grade to give their students a phone with internet access. The idea is if you have a pod of friends who are similarly situated and agree, it's easier to be the bad guy instead of the only person standing out there on an island. So it's a challenge, but we're working to support that reduction. This year, we instituted the kindergarten entry assessment, which focused on social and emotional learning. Do the students take turns? How well do they do when they're frustrated or things don't go their way? How do we develop those skills among our youngest learners? And one of the things that we thought about was part of focusing on social and emotional health and well-being among our youngest learners is not putting them in front of screens, but giving them time for creative play, solving differences with their peers. If we move the computers to an area where they have to walk, and that's the testing time, maybe 2 or 3 times a year, as opposed to having the computers constantly in the classroom for K2, that will naturally give us a reduction of school time and a greater focus on the development of empathy, kindness, and good citizenship. But all of what we do to meet our students' social and emotional needs only works if the teachers are prepared to do so. This year, we have made an effort to reduce mandated structured time, initiative overload for our teachers by giving back time throughout the year to ask teachers just to engage in service with their friends or in their local community, practice health, self-care. And again, a big commendation to our HR department for being so faculty focused and responsive to their needs. There are different things that our faculty go through. We're human. We're putting kids through college. We have sick parents. We have stresses that exist of living in a world where there is inflation and there's issues and worries that we have that can sometimes distract us from our work and be a challenge. Our Department of HR partnered with Atlantic Health, and we have concern services, which are therapeutic services that can be available to our faculty, but also group discussions and connections and virtual meeting groups where faculty can support one another through things like the loss of a parent, for example. What does that look like as we move forward? Offering teachers more time to meet,
to plan together, to connect between the middle school and the high school, to make sure that our algebra and geometry teachers at the middle school are meeting with our algebra and geometry teachers at the high school, to understand the continuum and development of the writing process by having vertical articulation meetings with teachers. So we take better care of our teachers by just being responsive to what they need. And what they're asking for is time to work with their colleagues, time to connect with people who are teaching the same topics, and also respecting that they too need support. The board tonight will see a revision of the anti-racism and demonstration policies, which is reflective of involvement of stakeholders in our policy meetings. And that's something that we would like to continue in the coming year to make sure that we're not just writing policies in a vacuum, but that we're inviting in the people who these policies affect to hear their perspective and to make sure that their language and desires are incorporated in the policies that we are including. It's hard to believe that with so many incredible artists, talented musicians, singers, and visual artists, that we've never had a formal supervisor for the visual and performing arts. Mr. Miller has taken on that role as an additional responsibility this year, and through that partnership, he got many of our students recognized in different programs through MPAC, having their artwork displayed, expanding their artists who could teach them how to hone and develop their craft. And our thought moving forward is we'd like to expand that to bring in the community in more ways than just traditional visual arts, but also the art of computing and computer design, the art of all of the work that we have in our various labs and CTE programs. This year, as I mentioned, we have developed some mentorship programs, but one of the things that we have been hearing in the community is where are more leadership opportunities for students. Particularly an area of focus is for young men, and we're seeing that they are less represented in leadership roles in schools than they were 15 years or so ago. So what are we doing to actively identify leadership opportunities for our students in each of these areas? And that's going to be part of focus. The Mount Morristown High School has put out counselor connections to be more proactive and share the services that the counselors can provide. One thing that we are working on as part of ensuring that we have all of the SEL and counseling services is increasing those tier 1 interventions by counselors. So tier 1 are typical problems that can face an adolescent or a young learner that should be dealt with in the guidance office. And we're thinking if we focus more of our attention on concentrating tier 1 supports and guidance, that we would then be able to manage with less counselors than we have this year because we've lost that ARP funding. We've seen more beyond the bell extracurricular programs and the constant struggle that we have, whether it be getting volunteers, going through the grant process, is that our co-curricular programs are not beginning early enough in the year. So that's a specific area of focus. We end up with money left over because we're starting later than we anticipated. So we moved it back and we were a little earlier this year, but we're still not beginning them at the onset of the school year when students really need those connections to make friends and feel connected to the school. I feel like I had a built-in commercial for athletics and belonging tonight. When we looked at the students were here, we think about 113 students on the winter, just on running, just on indoor track, 113 kids. I wrote down some of the notes. I'm sure you jotted them down too. Hearing the coaches say the values of sportsmanship, leadership, when they talked about our students and they said they left our program better than they found it, they are a positive representation of the community. Not only are they outstanding athletes, they're outstanding people. Some of the phrases that we heard tonight underscore the intentional connection that athletics can give to having students belong. When you looked at those kids tonight, you don't think they were tired when they woke up some mornings? They don't think they wanted to throw the sheets over their heads like most adolescents? But if one of the things that was bringing them to school was that big desire to be a part of a team, to participate, to have friends who are looking out for you. The connection between athletics and belonging in school is tremendous. And the more that we invest in these programs, and just think about the coaches that you saw here tonight, how they personally knew each of the students. Not only could they rattle up their stats, they can tell you about their families, what classes they're in. The value that the coaches and the athletic program have is promoting that sense of belonging. And across sports, one of the things that we've learned about our colonial nation is they are completely often singled out for outstanding fan participation, for school support. We have these outstanding young men and women, and I put that next to turf the career field at Harder Road, increase the coaches' stipends. Whatever we can do to show our student athletes that they're valued, to show our coaches that they're valued, is a small price to pay for the gift of belonging, leadership, peer connection, positive attitude towards school that comes from these pieces. So I put it under SEL because a sound mind and a healthy body is what we're all aspiring for. So I appreciate everybody's indulgence in speaking about academic programs, also thinking about SEL. But the main reason why we're here is to talk about the dollars and cents. And I'm still going backwards, which is also part of our long-term goal. So we're really proud of some of the things that have been done this year. Record number of ROD grants accepted, investment in New Jersey ARM to increase our revenue, carefully looking at room utilization. Our business administrator, Mr. LaFranco, has been on all the buildings with the principals, looking at all the furniture, picking out an area that hasn't been renovated in a number of years, home economics, and developing a renovation plan for that space. Also, just thinking about how are we caring for our investments? Do we have a cycle of how we're replacing uniforms? We started a little piece. It is a long, big dream for some board members, a number of community members, is to restore the Morristown High School auditorium to its beautiful historical design. So some initiatives that we've started as part of the long-range facilities plan, and then some planned actions. So we have the interest, how are we going to spend the interest? We got the grants, how are we going to establish a grant timeline? We know how the rooms are being used, how do we make sure that we're maintaining class size? What are our priority orders? How can we get more college and technical education programs in place, preparing students to go right into the workplace in culinary arts or to pursue a four-year degree in the culinary arts? This budget does have an equipment manager position. You got a glimpse of just some of the programs that are part of our winter. Think about that times 3 seasons, 24 use, just a dedicated person to make sure that all the money that we're investing in athletic equipment is well tracked and taken care of. So drilling down to the man who makes all of this work for the district and who can take a big list of wish list items and hear conversations about goals and translate them into a practical budget that is driven by student needs and improving instruction. Mr. LaFranco will walk us through the detailed presentation of the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rich. First, I'll talk a little bit about the budget process from here to the board. Right tonight, you guys are approving the preliminary budget. After this, it goes to the county for review and approval. Once we receive their approval, we'll be able to advertise that in the paper. It'll be in the Daily Record on our website. In April, we'll be able to go through our committee meetings and answer any questions you may have on anything that you see or anything that comes to mind between now and then. And then we'll have our final adoption and our public hearing our board meeting, April 29th at 7:30. So when we look at our budget, we start with enrollment. As you can see, over the past 11 years, it's been relatively flat. We do see some blips here or there where we might have some ups or downs throughout the course of the year, but relatively speaking, we've been flat around 5,000 students. We had a demographic study done a couple of years ago, take us out through 2025, and that same projection is forecasted. So we don't anticipate any major increases in the next 2 years. In terms of expenditures, some of our biggest expenses, one is obviously salaries. If you see this little chart down here, roughly 72% of our total budget goes to salaries. That's to pay teachers, custodians, all the coaches' stipends, all the people that go into educating the students. This year, the increase for our salary line was 3.2 million, or 4.7%. We also added in there a new position of supervisor for ESL and world language. One thing that helped us minimize that salary increase this year is that we were able to renegotiate our health benefits package and leave the state health benefits for private horizon. So the year-over-year increase is only 4%. Many districts in the state plan have to budget around 10-12%. So that's a realized savings budget-wide of almost $300,000. And we're going to use some of that benefits to help expand benefits for new hires by eliminating the 60-day waiting period. Currently, in our current plan, for teachers that start on day 1 of September 1, there's no waiting period. But if they were to start November, there would be a 60-day wait. So by doing this, they will be eligible for benefits on day 1. The other thing we're doing, as Dr. Mucci mentioned, is a new turf fields. So we will be utilizing these finance purchase. Will be paid off over 5 years. We have 2 projects that will be financed that way: a new district-wide security system, roughly estimated at 1.7 million, and the turf field over at Harder Road. It includes some other site improvements that's estimated at $2 million. Dr. Mucci also spoke about the counseling services. We did reallocate approximately $100,000. So Dr. Pinto will be working with our providers to ensure that all the students receive the services they need, but that line is down approximately $100,000. We have to repurpose that for other needs in the budget. As you can see here, our expense breakdown, the lion's share of our expenses goes to instruction at 67%. That includes all the materials, teacher salaries, everything that goes to instructing the students. The next largest share is facilities. That includes our utilities, the improvements we do, the staff to maintain our buildings and grounds. That's 9.9%. Transportation, with the expansion of our reducing the walking zones, we're up to approximately about 85 routes. We transport nearly 5,000 students. That budget line alone is around $11.5 million. That's 9.2% of our budget. Our fleet is up to around 100 vehicles right now. That includes, we also have 4 mechanics and 5 office staff to make sure that all runs properly. And we have some administrative lines that includes not just staff, but that includes things that we need to run as an operation, for example, insurance, postage, telephone bills, all those things to help make the organization run day to day. And then finally is tuition. That includes special ed placements and charter schools. That's at 5.7%. That's up roughly 8% year over year.
Anthony, is it possible to see how these percentages have changed over the last 15 years, say, just how much was instruction 15 years ago versus now, and how much are we paying out in tuition versus?
Yeah, I'll be able to put some information together for our next finance committee and see what I can grab out of the system.
Yeah, please, thank you. It'd be very interesting to see, I know.
Okay. Some of the building improvements that we spoke about. We previously discussed things that are happening right now. For example, the ROD grants, which includes roof replacements, electrical upgrades, and those projects. Those are planned for the following year. Those are already funded. These are new projects that we're funding in the current year budget. We're doing a culinary arts renovation here downstairs at the high school. The current lab is from the 1950s. If you were to walk down there and you can see broken cabinets, it looks really bad. So it's overdue for an upgrade. We're doing 2 fire alarm upgrades at Alfred Vale and Normandy Park. It's the last 2 schools that have an old system. So all our buildings will be up to current code with fire alarm upgrades after this. Electrical upgrades at the high school. This is so we can take some temporary measures to add window air conditioning units on the 3rd or 4th floor. Those are the 2 areas of the building that are extremely hot on hot days. And as I mentioned previously, the lease purchase financing of the turf fields and the security camera projects. So altogether, for capital projects that we're funding through reserve funds is $4.1 million. In addition to that, in our budget, we fund $1.3 million of maintenance projects. These are things that we do year over year to maintain our buildings. So this includes repairs to doors and entryways, repairs to paving, repairs to fencing and windows. These are all things to make sure that everything stays in good shape and will last a long time. And that number has been consistent. Historically, we've always spent at least $1 million in that line. So revenue changes over the years. Previously, this slide used to go the other direction when the state would not fund education fully. We were stagnant for many years, between $3 and $6 million. We were underfunded by the state's own formula. They've finally been reallocating resources based on actual enrollments and reallocating funds to where the students are. So over the past few years, we've seen some steady increases. And now our general fund, we're up to $10.1 million in state aid. We're still slightly underfunded with $200,000, but we're thankful that we are where we are. Including our preschool expansion program, we're at $20 million in state funding. Other items the other big ticket item for our revenue source is our tax levy. This year, we are projecting a 2.99% increase in tax levy. I'll talk more about that on the next slide on how we can go over a flat 2%. We're utilizing $1 million in our maintenance reserve to help fund this project I discussed. The NJ ARM interest, we're projecting an income of $750,000. E-rate reimbursement is a federal program to help fund equipment purchases for instruction and also offset our costs for our telecommunications bills. Excess surplus, we had a reduction this year. In the prior year, if you recall, there was a recalculation of our unreserved. We had to reduce that down to 2%. So we had extra money in the current year budget. So going to 24-25, that was a decrease of $2 million. And then our mortgage claims tuition is at $3.5 million. They're budgeted for 15 less students next year based on their current enrollment. Here's a little chart that shows where our revenue sources come from. As I mentioned, the local tax levy is the largest share. We have 77% of our budget is funded by their local taxpayers. Next is our state and federal aid at 8%. Our tax relief, which is that excess surplus I mentioned, at 6%, and 3% for tuition. And then we have some various other items in there for the reserves, our interest income, that amounts to a little bit around 4%. So our tax levy is in New Jersey, we're limited to 2% on our current tax levy, but they allow adjustments for enrollment and for healthcare. And if you don't take those adjustments in the year you earn them, you're allowed to roll it over as bank cap for 3 years. So over the past 3 years, we've generated $2.7 million of bank cap that we have not utilized. This year, we need to utilize approximately $1 million. That brings our tax levy to 2.99, or an increase of $3 million, bringing our total levy to $103 million. We still have roughly $1.7 million that will expire in 2027. So our plan right now is to utilize that over the next 2 years to limit the budget impact to the taxpayers and be able to utilize that to put it back into our program, whether it's in programs or facility improvements. Once we determine what our tax levy is, we use the equalized value formula to determine how that gets split between our two municipalities, Township of Morris and Morristown. This year, there was a big change in the equalized value of Morristown due to the reassessment. It went from 32% last year of their share to 39.9%. So they're picking up a larger share of the pie, approximately 7.1%. So if you think of our equalized value as a pie, the dark blue here is Morristown. From last year to this year, their piece got bigger. So even though we're raising taxes this year, for both municipalities, there's going to be a tax decrease to the resident. Now, for Morris Township, that's easy to understand because their piece of the pie got bigger. So even if it's the same number of households, they have a small piece to pay, so it's going to go down. In Morristown, what happened is their piece got bigger, but the number of people paying into that got larger also. So each individual homeowner will have a decrease as well. So for Morristown, the average home assessed at $635,000 will have a decrease of $229 a year, and the Township of Morris, a reduction of $147. The tax rate for assessed value of $100,000 is $779 for Morristown and $1,197 for the township if you want to project that out to your individual equalized value for your house. You get those little postcards in the mail this time of year for your taxes. So I hope I tried to explain that clearly, where the piece for Morristown, even though it got bigger, there's more properties paying into it, so each individual share is smaller. So that's why even though we're raising taxes in both municipalities, the tax rate for each homeowner is decreasing.
So you're saying there's more people now paying taxes in Morristown?
That's,
Or is it but that doesn't seem right. You don't suddenly start getting
There's
paid.
more housing, that's why there's more people.
so
If they were paying taxes before.
The commercial,
It's the commercial, more has moved to the commercial properties of paying.
So the only number I get is,
Suddenly you're getting taxed.
correct, so the only number I get is the equalized value. I don't know what went into that, whether it's the number of houses or businesses. But if you look at that as compared to the average home that they gave me, it appears as though there was about 1,000 more units. It doesn't mean 1,000 more houses, but there's more properties, whether commercial or business, that are paying into it. So it's reducing everybody's burden.
I don't think it's more properties. It's more value in commercial properties than it used to be. The properties is a finite number,
Correct.
so you don't get suddenly new property.
Well, some properties weren't paying taxes if they had previous old pilot programs that may have come back on the books.
That could be really. I don't think any of those pilots have expired yet, those because they're 4
Yeah,
years.
that's just one example of how something could go on the books that wasn't there previously. Because you can't add more lands, like to your point. All right, in a little bit, Dr. Mucci also mentioned some federal grants, and you may have heard in the news that all this money's going away. So I just wanted to kind of briefly go through some of the things that we have in the current year budget that's funded by the federal ARP grant and how we're addressing that for the upcoming year. So in the current year, we have some staff on there. We're funding summer programs, HEPA filters, some transportation costs, some stipends, and other staff, and some new software for the PRISM VR goggles. In the upcoming school year, the homeless transportation won't be as large an issue is now due to a project going on in town for rehabilitation. That should be over. The corridor stapling will be reallocating those funds to Title II, where we get money each year. The summer program, even though the grants expire this year, they actually expire August. So we're able to use the ARP grant to cover this year's summer. So we won't have to address funding for summer school until the 25-26 budget year. So we have one more year for that. The ESL teachers and the prison program, we were able to incorporate into this budget that we're developed. But we have eliminated the MTSS and the long-term sub position for next year. All right, that's all I have. Do you have any questions?
great job.
Thanks, thank you, great job.
I just want to say I appreciate all the work that's gone into not only budget process, but all the work that Dr. Mucci has done in coming into the district and working for improved success. You know, to your point, Anthony, there's several weeks before we finally adopt the budget, and I just wanted to express that I'm especially excited about our investment in the science of reading. And, you know, this is where our students get their foundation, and it's an important investment. And it's important that we double down on ensuring strong instruction at this level. So I'm hoping, you know, in our upcoming committee meetings that we can get a better understanding of, you know, given our goals, how the investments will translate into, you know, perhaps professional development or how we're allocating positions to meet our goals in elementary. So thank you. I just want to share.
All right, thank you.
Well, I just want to say I'm completely blown away by all of this between and what you presented and then that combined with this. I'm like, like so much is going on. It's incredible.
Very hard.
Honestly, it's just incredible. And I absolutely agree with what Meredith had to say, considering everyone that was here earlier in the night. The word on the street is that so much great stuff is happening, and I think a lot of focus is on sports, and I think that's positive. There's so much other amazing stuff that's happening too, but all the things that were listed that are going to kind of continue that. When I looked at that demographic number earlier today, I thought to myself, if we keep on the same trajectory with sports, that number is going to change, because I think we've been for years losing so many kids to private school. And I feel like we're finally gonna stop, and I think it's gonna change a lot of things, and it's all gonna be for the better, so I'm just thrilled.
Yeah, I would also just add, I really appreciated the alignment of our district goals with how closely that goes, because we know how much work you all do with that, but it's really nice to have that laid out. And I think that the excitement about sports is just going to continue because a lot of the work that you all have put in this year, it is a heavier lift and it's going to take time, but seeing how much thoughtful planning is going into that and making sure that our resources align, especially those of you who are new to the district this year, just how much you have contributed. It's really been remarkable and we're very grateful. So thank you.
Yes, Alvin.
Thank you so much.
Oh, so we're gonna post it to the website with the recording of this piece of the board meeting.
All right. The only things that I had were certainly just call out and thank, in the past couple weeks, there